supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Dynamic Dog Owner, the podcast designed to support you, the dog parent, in your dog parenting journey, which there's a lot in this journey, isn't there? So much goes on, so many different changes throughout life, and so many more. That's why we think about training is for life, not just for puppies, because training isn't just something that's done in 6 weeks. There's so much more, and there's always life changing. You know, training is about preparing dogs for life and all that might get thrown at them in their life. So we like to talk on the podcast about supporting you, giving you ideas, suggestions, looking at things from a different perspective, not just on the how to make my dog do what I need them to do, because there's more to it than that. And today I'm going to talk about a big life change my dogs have had, which I've talked about a little bit or prepared for on the podcast before. But now I'm going to talk about how it actually has gone. Okay, so you'll know a couple of weeks ago I mentioned that I was getting a new kitten. And I talked about how to prepare for a kitten arriving in the house and what I'd done. So we're a month in. Okay, so we've had Kitten a month. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't want a cat. It's my daughter that wanted a cat. I put it off for ages. And I thought, I'm not really a cat person. I'm probably still not every cat person, but I'm definitely a my cat person. I adore him. He is gorgeous. He is so sweet and funny, and I love watching him, and he is amazing. So anyway, my dogs, 3 dogs, were 9, 7 and 5. And they've never lived with a cat before. So I had no idea how this was going to go. Absolutely no idea. And obviously, we've done all the preparation. I've done as much preparation as I can. I always think there's that phrase, isn't there? Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Hence, a lot of preparation went into preparing the house, multiple stair gates, safe spaces, etc. And yeah, we've had him a month. And I am amazed at how quickly he has settled in, for one, and how quickly the dogs have adjusted to having a cat, and that they are now completely integrated. We don't need stair gates. We don't need a safe space. I am amazed. And it's made me go, geez, my dogs are freaking amazing. Just saying. Because they've done so well. I did not expect it. And obviously I've loads to talk about this topic. But it's interesting. When I went to the vet for Edelweiss's jabs, she said it's really rare that we have people who've got dogs and bring a cat in. It's common the other way around, which I completely get, because a cat is almost like it sounds rude, but it's like a starter pet, isn't it? Because you have a cat, because they're less commitment in terms of you can leave them for however long, you can go away and have someone pop in to feed them. They don't need as much as a dog. So it always almost like a starter pet. And then when you've got more time, etc., you can go on to have a dog. So it's really common to bring dogs into a cat house, but not the other way around. So I've never helped to support anyone who's done it the other way around. Now I can. But equally, I know a lot more about the actual practicalities of cats living with dogs. So how's it gone? Basically, the first... So bear in mind, Edelweiss was like 8 weeks old when we got him. So teeny tiny. He's grown quite a lot, but he's still teeny tiny. My big thing was I wanted all the dogs to feel happy and comfortable with him, and I wanted to build up interaction. So I'm pretty sure that the fact that my dogs are older, they are mature, they've all done training, has helped, because they've got prior skills to fall back on. They've all got a good response to me calling them. If I ask them to focus on me, they will. They've all got a good association with training in terms of knowing their marker, and knowing how to work through emotions. So if I mark treats coming, we've all done a lot of disengagement training on people, dogs, distractions. So all of that prior knowledge, and obviously they've all lived together. Let's face it, living together with another dog builds massive communication skills, and they do all communicate beautifully together. And I think all of that is what's helped them welcome the cat in quite well, because effectively all of their prior training has just gone, we put all of that knowledge into this new experience. But anyway, the cat had probably, I think, about 3 or 4 days where he just stayed in my daughter's room, door shut, stayed in my daughter's room. That was his safe space. We wanted him to be happy and comfortable. And he did get really happy and comfortable. We then, whenever the dogs were out, So obviously, all three went out for a walk. We'd bring him down, let him kind of just see the living room, get used to it, and then we'd pop him back up before the dogs came away or came back. And probably after like 2 or 3 days, we had a dog at a time on the landing, watching him through the stair gate in the room, and kind of just watching him going, "What's that?" And doing some training of watch that, watch me, watch that, just disengage, engage, which is really important. Really important that they can learn to make choices to disengage with him and watch him and take him in, but also learn to look away. And then after about a week, obviously I had my ideas. In the last podcast, you'll see that I thought Dave would get on with him, or Ren would get on with him the easiest, then Dave, then Fred. I was wrong. I was totally wrong. Fred has actually found him the easiest out of everyone, Ren the second, and Dave's found him the hardest. But I think Dave's was a lot of frustration. We then did a lot of controlled exposure. So 2 of the dogs would go out, and I'd leave one at home on a lead in the living room, and I'd bring the cat down, pop him on the back of the sofa so he was up high. Obviously, we know cats like to be up high, so he was up high and felt a little bit safe. And then I would practice being in the living room with the dogs, looking at him, looking away, looking at him, looking away, learning to chill out. I did that with all of them. And then we progressed to each dog doing obviously slightly different speed, but then having the lead dropped around the house, in the living room. And then I could tell with Dave especially, because I started with Dave thinking he's finding this the hardest. I was sure it was frustration, and it was. So he just wanted to go and say hello. So he had the most training at the beginning with this. And then I thought, you know what? I know he's a gentle giant. He's just going to go over there and sniff him. So he went over to the cat, finally, got to say hello to him, and was like, "Oh my God, it's a cat. Let's play, let's play." The cat hissed at him, and he went, "Oh, okay. I think that means no." And then he went over again, cat hissed again. He was like, "Ah, okay." And he tried it a third time, and he was like, "Okay, I understand." And then he was like, "Cool, I can communicate with the cat." The cat's never hissed again. So that was the 3 hisses we heard at the very beginning. Never heard him hiss again. And after that, Dave was fine. He was like, "I've got to say hello to him. I understand what he does." And we did that with each dog. And now, interesting, really, really interesting. Rem was just like, "It's a cat. Who cares?" And was like, whatever, and ignored him completely from the beginning, which is actually really nice. But he's found it harder when he started moving. So at the beginning, Edelweiss would just sit on the top of the sofa and be like, "I'm just going to sit here and take it all in. Don't dare move." Even if the dogs come up to him, he'd be like, "I'm just going to sit here, pretend I don't exist." No, I don't think it was. I think it was more of I'm just going to sit here and just chill. Really chill cat. Now, the first time Fred met him, I found it fascinating. I thought Fred was going to be the worst because he's quite a nervous character. He's a little bit easily startled. He's a sensitive soul. But from the first meeting, I was like, he's fine with the cat. And I let go of the lead, and he wandered over and looked at the cat and was like, "It's a cat, Mum." And then he just curled up next to him. I was like, okay. And then he got up and sat on the sofa next to him and was just like looking down at him, going, "I have a cat." I was like, okay, this is really weird. First one to kind of go, I can sit next to him. I can lay next to him. He's my best friend now. And then what transpired, obviously we then started doing this with all of the dogs. So I'd have all 3 dogs on the lead. The cat would come down. What transpired is that actually Fred's a peacekeeper. He likes to keep the peace. He does it with me. He does it with so if anyone has an argument, like if the dogs have a little altercation, or if they're being a little bit too much in fun, or if kids and teenagers, they argue with their mum, obviously, anything like that happens. Even affection, if you get hugs, he has to be in there. And it's peacekeeping. He interrupts a situation and diffuses tension. It's what he's done ever since he was tiny. And he does it with a cat. So if one of the other dogs comes over, he goes in and goes, "My cat, behave." And he's literally kept the other 2 in line. If Dave's got over going, "Oh, let's play with the cat," he's come in and gone, "No, Dave, we don't do that. Thank you." And he's literally been like the cat's very private own guard dog, which is epic. So all of this is going well. We had a week of bringing the cat down for controlled interactions in the evening. I was sat there watching them. I did nothing for about 2 weeks, just sat watching the cats and the dogs. And then what transpired was it was fine him coming down and being brought down, but then of course the cat was like, I quite like it down here. So he would then choose to come on the stairs, and as soon as he got to the bottom of the stairs, the dogs would go ape, lose their shit, and be like, oh my God, we've got a cat, and almost forget. And then when I bring him down and put him on the side, I'd be like, we have a cat, this is all cool. But then the cat would appear, shit, there's a cat. Weird. And I was like, how are we going to get over this one then? It's fine if the cat is brought into the room and he's sat still, but if he appears, no, we forget he exists. And then in the end, I was thinking about it, and I thought, do you know what? When we have a cat, a puppy is with them all the time. He's in the living room from day one. There's never this, he goes, he comes back, he goes, he comes back. And I thought, but that's what's happening with the cat. The cat's going and coming and going and coming, and they actually just need to spend more time together. So I started leaving the stair gate of the cats on the room upstairs open more, and he just started coming downstairs more. And he's the most confident cat in the world, like honestly, so confident. And one day he just went, do you know what, I'm going to be downstairs. I was like, cool. And the dogs went, so he just doesn't go away again and come back. And as soon as that happened, they've been absolutely fine. So since that moment, we've had no leads on in the house. The cat is free to go wherever he chooses. The dogs don't mind him appearing and disappearing. The cat literally, he goes all throughout the dog's legs. He sits and waits for his breakfast in a little line with them all sat in the kitchen looking at me. They curl up. He curls up in a dog bed. I'm sure he thinks he's a dog. I'm not going to lie. I'm sure he just thinks he's a small dog, because he curls up in the dog beds with them. Well, not with them, next to them. And he curled up on the sofa next to one of the dogs yesterday. Like, there's still a lot of air between them, but as close as they've been. And yeah, they are getting on beautifully, absolutely beautifully. And they don't mind the cat. The only time, to be honest, the only time they don't like it is if they're in the garden and he's in the house looking back at them through the window. They're like, oh, there's a barrier between us. So it's purely the fact that when they're not with him, they get a little bit frustrated because they want to be with him. But honestly, 3 weeks, I did not expect in 3 weeks that the dogs and the cats would be, or the cat would be completely comfortable with each other. I'm sure it comes down to prior training from the dog's perspective, prior skills, the fact they're mature and they're sensible and they've got so much in their training bag effectively. They've got so much skill to fall back on. But also the cat's a really confident cat, so he won't run away. He won't do anything to kind of not want to be with them. And equally, people said to me at the beginning, they said, it'll be fine until the cat starts bouncing around, so it starts doing kitten things and jumping and zooming. They don't even mind that. I'm amazed, absolutely amazed. But again, I think it's when anything changes. So we installed some cat shelves last week, which I've actually put in a completely different room. I was going to put them on the stairs. I'm glad I waited because I wanted them done before he came. But actually, I'm really glad I waited, because I wouldn't have put them where I put them now. So I was going to put them as like an escape route from the living room, so he could choose to get upstairs if he wanted to and be with us, but not want to be with us, assuming that it would take him 6 months to get used to being with the dogs. And we waited a little bit, and my father-in-law came around to put them up. So I'm glad that he couldn't do it when he said he could, because otherwise I'd have put them in the wrong place. Now they're in the dining room, and they're there purely for the cat's enjoyment. So he goes up there to sleep, he climbs on all the little ladders and everything. But again, the first time he went on the top shelf, the dogs were like, but we can't get to him. And that's when they were upset. So the dogs are only concerned when they can't get to the cat, which is really weird. But yeah, they are all absolutely perfectly living together, which I'm amazed by. Now, obviously, it comes down to an awful lot of things. And now I appreciate for most people, this podcast isn't going to be very useful other than just hearing about how my cat's dog getting on. Because most people don't introduce a cat to a dog household. But if you are, or if you know someone who wants to, send them this podcast, because hopefully it will help give you a rough idea of what I've done. But obviously, equally, we do virtual training, so I can always help people through the journey too. Most people do it the other way around. They already have a cat and they have to introduce a puppy. And then obviously the puppy doesn't have the skill. This is where why it's harder. The puppy is learning everything rather than just learning how to live with a cat. They've got to learn all of it. So it's a lot harder to introduce a puppy to a cat household, but it can be done. It is done all the time. It probably just takes a little bit longer than 3 weeks because puppy hasn't got that bank of learning. So we just have to make sure that when we have a puppy brought into a cat household, we know which bits we need to work on. What are the important things? What are the key factors? Which to me, I would say, would be engagement, disengagement. So focusing on you, disengaging from the cat, and learning not to chase, quite simply. Those are the 3 things I think are key. And obviously, a cat having to then get used to this thing being in his house is probably the hard thing as well, because cats are quite, not going to lie, I definitely see why people get cats over dogs. They are so easy. So easy. Like, we sat on the first few nights going, we've got a cat. Should we be doing something with the cat? Because he's just quite happy. He doesn't need us for anything. We're used to puppies where over the first 6 months, you're like, can't do anything, I've got a puppy. I've got to be on toilet duty. I've got to do this. I've got to be on a make sure he's safe. I've got to not make sure he picks up stuff. You're like on a puppy all the time. And yeah, you don't have to do it with a cat. So they are so much easier. So it is a big transition from having just a cat to a dog. I get that now, completely see it through a different set of eyes. But then equally, I find it really interesting that I've treated my kitten completely different to that of a dog. When you get a puppy, it's all very much like, don't let them jump, don't let them do this, don't let them do that, don't let them do the other. Whereas a cat, it's completely different, because you're like, well, they climb. That's what cats do. I've noticed, maybe it's me, I don't know, but I think in general, we give cats so much more freedom to do what they can do within their own capabilities. Like this morning, I've been teaching, obviously, I how to use these stairs going up to his thing. I haven't really been teaching him, but I've been plonking him there and going, this is what you do, and encouraging him to do it and being there ready to catch him if he doesn't. And today, he literally just jumped with 2 feet, clambered a little bit, pulled himself up, shoved his back feet on, climbed over the top. And you think, wow, that's pretty impressive, considering you are 12 weeks old. We would never give a puppy that much freedom. It's interesting. I find it fascinating how we do treat them completely different. And we almost wrap puppies up in cotton wool. And cats, we just go, well, they're cats. That's what they do. Really, really interesting. And it's something I've definitely noticed, that with cats, you just tend to give them so much. They are independent, and we just need to let them get on with it. We allow him to explore. We allow him to climb. He climbed on something and it fell off and he tumbled to the ground, but he did a cat thing, landed on his feet and walked away and was absolutely fine. With a puppy, we'd be like, oh my goodness. Why is that? Why do we treat puppies almost like they don't know their own capabilities more than a cat? Really, really interesting. I'd like to look at that and study that a little bit more. What are your thoughts? Do we treat dogs and cats differently? Do we allow kittens and cats to understand, or especially kittens? I think kittens and puppies here. Do we allow kittens, do we trust they know their own bodies and know their own capabilities more than we do puppies? I think we do. I think it's really interesting to see the difference. Anyway, I go off on a tangent. So that is how introducing a kitten to my house has gone. The most easy process. I'm touch wood, it continues, but I am amazed at how well they are all integrated. They curl up on my bed. Dogs don't mind the cat wandering around. The cat goes through their legs. They sit and eat together. They sleep together. They're not curling up, like touching yet, but we're about a foot apart, which I think for 3 weeks is pretty impressive. So if anyone's thinking, can I introduce a cat into my dog household? The answer is absolutely, it's a possibility. Obviously, your dogs and their prior experience with cats is very important to note. Obviously, different breeds are going to find it harder. But it definitely can be done, guys. Definitely can be done. So hopefully you found this useful. If you've got any questions for me, or would like to know anything about how, what, why, or any thoughts, pop them in the comments, ping over to our social media. Have a lovely week, and I'll catch up with you really soon. If you love listening to the podcast, why not check out the Pawcademy for practical dog training advice and how-to videos. The hub is broken down into sections and hundreds of pre-recorded videos are there for you to start watching whenever you choose. You can watch them back as many times as you like. You also get to talk to other community members and discuss your training and benefit from live Q&As with myself where you can get your questions answered. Why not make use of our 3-day free trial where you can access all of the content on the hub absolutely free for 3 days. The link is in the description below, so do check that out. And I can't wait to see you in the hub.
Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.